What would you do if, on an ordinary afternoon, the president himself stopped in front of your small workshop and spoke your name? The scorching sun blazed over the streets of Ouagadougou, its heat rising in shimmering waves from the tarmac. Cars and motorcycles roared by, stirring clouds of dust that clung to sweaty faces and windshields. At the edge of a busy intersection, a man in torn, oil-stained clothes bent under the hood of an old pickup. His fingers were black with grease, his face shining with sweat. This was Thomas, once the most brilliant student in his school, now a roadside mechanic struggling to survive. Teachers had once praised his sharp mind, and classmates had leaned on him for help with lessons. He had dreamed of becoming an engineer, perhaps even contributing to a stronger Burkina Faso. But when a fire claimed his parents at the age of 16, Thomas abandoned school to raise his younger sister. An elderly villager taught him how to repair engines, and eventually he moved to the city. This was Thomas, once the most brilliant student in his school, now a roadside mechanic struggling to survive. He set up a tiny workshop at this dusty corner. Work was backbreaking and the pay never certain. Some days customers scolded him, other days he returned home empty-handed. Yet Thomas never cheated anyone. "If I stay honest and keep working," he reminded himself, "better days will come." That afternoon, the routine was broken. A gleaming black car halted at the junction. Two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the crowd. Traffic slowed and whispers spread among bystanders. "It's the president's convoy," someone murmured. Thomas barely looked up, crouched beside a motorcycle, tightening bolts. Big men in shiny cars didn't pay his bills. He had work to finish. Then, a tall figure in a crisp military uniform stepped out. His eyes swept across the street until they froze. "Thomas," the man breathed, as if doubting what he saw. Without raising his head, Thomas muttered, "1 minute. Almost finished here." The voice came again, louder now, thick with emotion. "Thomas, is it really you?" This time Thomas stood, wiping sweat from his brow with a rag. He looked up. "Ibrahim." The crowd fell silent. The man removed his cap and strode forward, ignoring the bodyguards. In an instant, he embraced Thomas tightly. "I can't believe it's you," he said, voice breaking. "My best friend. My brother." Gasps rippled through the bystanders. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso stood weeping openly in the street, holding a roadside mechanic. Thomas's chest tightened. He hadn't seen Ibrahim since their boyhood days in the same village, when they dreamed of changing their nation together. Life had taken one to the presidential palace and left the other on this dusty roadside. "You promised we'd change the country side by side," Ibrahim whispered. "How did I let this happen to you?" "You didn't," Thomas replied softly. "Life just carried us down different roads." Ibrahim gripped his shoulders. "Then tell me everything. Come with me now. Leave this place." Thomas shook his head. "I can't. I have customers waiting." The president glanced at the unfinished work, straightened his cap, and said, "Then I'll sit with you." And he did. The president of Burkina Faso, a man whose every second was precious, lowered himself onto a creaky stool beside the mechanic. The crowd gasped. Cars slowed, phones rose to capture the moment. But Ibrahim ignored them all. Before him sat his childhood friend, the same honest, humble, stubborn Thomas he had known since boyhood. They sat together on the old bench outside the tin-roofed workshop, dust drifting in golden afternoon light. No one dared to interrupt. For a moment it felt as if the whole city had paused. "You haven't changed, Thomas," Ibrahim murmured. "Still humble, still stubborn?" Thomas chuckled. "And you're still dramatic, sitting with a greasy mechanic in front of the whole city? Your guards look ready to faint." Ibrahim laughed through damp eyes. "Let them. They must remember that power means nothing without loyalty and truth. And you've always reminded me of that. Thomas smiled warmly. Do you remember when we were caught stealing mangoes from Old Man Kiboli's farm? How could I forget? Ibrahim grinned. You ran so fast your shoe flew into the river, yet you still came back for me. That's when I knew you were different. And you told me, Thomas said quietly, that one day we'd lead this country together. Ibrahim's smile faded. And I swore I'd never lose you. But you had to care for your sister. I should have searched for you, Thomas. I should have helped. Thomas looked at his grease-stained hands. I don't blame you. I'm proud of you. Look at what you've done for this nation. But how can I say I'm building a future? Ibrahim whispered. When the brightest boy I knew still struggles to survive? Before Thomas could reply, a small girl ran up, breathless. Papa, Mama says come home early. There's no firewood to cook the rice. She froze at the sight of the man beside her father. Papa, is that the president? Thomas smiled. Yes, sweetheart. This is Uncle Ibrahim. Ibrahim's eyes softened. Come here, little one. The girl hesitated, then walked into his arms. She's beautiful, Ibrahim said, his voice gentle. What's her name? Amina, Thomas replied proudly. My pride and joy. Ibrahim's gaze grew serious. She deserves better than this, Thomas. You've carried enough. Let me help. Thomas shook his head. I don't need charity. I need a promise. Anything, Ibrahim said without hesitation. Promise me you'll build a country where no child has to leave school just to survive. Promise me you'll protect the honest, the hard-working, those who never gave up. Ibrahim clasped his hand firmly. I promise, on my honor, and I'll begin today, with you. That evening, Ibrahim canceled every meeting. At the palace, he gathered his ministers. Today, he said, I sat with a man who reminded me why I became president. We must do more. We must honor those who hold this country together with their bare hands. Quietly, without recognition. He never spoke Thomas's name, but his heart burned with a new fire, lit by friendship and loyalty. Meanwhile, Thomas walked home holding Amina's hand. Neighbors peeked from their doors, whispering with new respect. But Thomas didn't care for their murmurs. What mattered was simple. His old friend remembered him. And maybe, just maybe, change was coming. The next morning, the golden sun rose slowly over Ouagadougou. Thomas was already at work, crouched beside a battered motorcycle. He hummed as he tightened its chain. The rhythm was the same, until the traffic stilled. Heads turned. Voices whispered. A government convoy pulled to a stop in front of his workshop. This time it felt official. Men in suits and uniforms stepped out, and a small stage had been set up by his dusty shed. Loudspeakers buzzed. A microphone stood ready. What's happening, Ibrahim? Thomas called, bewildered. The president walked over, smiling warmly. Thomas, yesterday I wept. Today, I've come to honor. He turned to the crowd, took the microphone, and spoke clearly. People of Burkina Faso, I want you to meet my friend. Not just any friend. This man was the top of our class. He taught me mathematics when I was failing. He shared food when I had none. He gave up his dreams to raise his sister. And while I became your president, he worked humbly by the roadside. The crowd grew still, eyes fixed on Thomas. That's when I knew you were different. And you told me, Thomas said quietly, that one day we'd lead this country together. Yesterday, Ibrahim continued, he reminded me what true service is. He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for power. He asked me to work harder, for people like him, who labor every day with honesty and dignity. The crowd erupted in applause. Today, Ibrahim declared, I keep my promise. From this moment, Thomas will no longer work by the roadside. His workshop will become a government-sponsored training center, a place where he will teach young people to repair engines, earn a living, and stand tall. The building is ready. The tools are waiting. A team is prepared to support him. Thomas was speechless. And one more thing, Ibrahim added. His daughter Amina will receive a full scholarship to any school she chooses, through university. And his family will move into a new home, provided by the government. The crowd roared as Thomas dropped his wrench. Tears spilled as he covered his face. He had never asked for riches, only to be remembered. And now he was being celebrated. Phones flashed, journalists shouted, but Thomas's words trembled when he finally spoke on stage. "I never wanted fame," he said softly. "I only wanted to do the right thing, and I am not alone. Across this country, there are many like me, honest, strong, unseen. Please, don't forget them." He turned to Ibrahim. "Thank you, my brother, not for gifts, but for remembering who you are." That evening, the story spread across Burkina Faso. On television, radio, and social media, people wept and cheered. Some dared to hope that change had begun. At home, Amina hugged her mother. "Mama, Papa's a hero." "Yes," Esther whispered, tears glistening. "And today the world sees it." That night, Ibrahim sat alone in his study, staring at an old photograph of two smiling boys in faded uniforms. He touched it gently. "Thank you, Thomas," he whispered. "You reminded me of who I am." Days later, the new mechanic training center buzzed with activity. People traveled from nearby towns to shake Thomas's hand. They came to thank him for his honesty. But one morning, a polished black car stopped in front of him. Two men stepped out. One tall, with dark glasses, the other shorter, carrying himself like a man used to power. "Are you Thomas?" the tall one asked. "Yes," Thomas replied. "How can I help?" "We have a proposal," the shorter man said, laying a fat brown envelope on the desk. "Inside is 5 million CFA. All we ask is that next time the president visits, you serve him a drink we provide." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "You want me to poison the president?" "Not poison," the man insisted. "Just something to make him ill. You'll be safe. And rich. Houses abroad, your daughter studying overseas." Thomas remained calm. "Come back in 2 days. I'll decide." Ibrahim clasped his hand firmly. Her hands shook. "God forbid, he only helped us." "And that's why I'll never agree," Thomas said. "Tonight I'll warn the president." That night he handed the envelope to Ibrahim and told him everything. Ibrahim's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thomas, you just saved my life." Security forces quickly captured the men. Under questioning, they confessed their plot. But Thomas's courage had stopped them. News spread. The mechanic had saved the president. Ibrahim honored Thomas publicly, granting his daughter a scholarship abroad and his wife ownership of a modern supermarket. Thomas's dusty workshop became one of the largest training centers in the nation. At dinner in their new home, Thomas raised his glass. "To my wife, my daughter, and my brother, the president. Tonight we celebrate truth and friendship." "To truth," Esther said. "To my scholarship," Amina laughed. And far away in the palace, Ibrahim gazed at the stars. "Some leaders are protected by guards, guns, and walls," he whispered. "But me, I am protected by a friend." And so began a new chapter for Burkina Faso, a nation reminded that honesty is stronger than wealth, and true friendship can change the world. True loyalty never fades. Even the smallest acts of kindness can spark revolutions. Real leadership is not measured by power, but by how you lift others up. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes in the power of friendship and truth. Thank you for watching.